Hello, I'd like to talk a little bit about this book, an amazing book, one of the best self-help books I've ever read. I'm going to copy and paste a link in the comments parts of the YouTube video. On the notes you'll be able to see Maxwell Maltz himself, the author, talk about his main thesis and his main ideas. This book came out in the 1960s, so it's quite old now, but it's had a very profound influence on almost every major self-help book that's come out subsequently. The main thesis of this book is that we have something called self-image. So the most important opinion we have is the opinion we hold about ourselves, what we believe to be true of ourselves. Sometimes people talk about self-esteem, but the beliefs we have manifest in our behaviour. So he argues that many people are not successes because they don't think of themselves as a successful person. They don't believe themselves to have the attributes and the traits and the ability to be successful. And his main argument in the book is that the title is called Psycho-Cybernetics because he makes the arguments that we have a success mechanism in our brain, but we need to give our brain a goal and a self-image. We need to change the opinion we have of ourselves. So we need to imagine ourselves as being successful in whatever form that might take place. Everyone is different, everyone's going to have different goals, they have different talents, different abilities, different interests, different circumstances, but everyone has the potential to be the best possible version of themselves. But in order to achieve that aim, in order to achieve their goal, they've got to picture in their mind's eye detail about what they will be and make themselves believe that they are already successful, because in his view, our brain makes no distinction between belief and actuality. So his main argument is that if we believe that we are successful and that we can succeed, we will go on to prove. One of the things that Robert Cialdini, for example, spoke about in his book Influence is the principle of consistency. So whether we like it or not, our behaviour, and sometimes we're not even conscious of this, we're not even self-aware, our behaviour, we do things to be consistent with our innermost beliefs. And what we believe to be true, that's what manifests in our lives. And so he argues that many people, particularly if they're born into poverty, if they're born into poor circumstances, or for example at school, they were criticised heavily by their teachers, told, possibly not explicitly, but they were just an average student, you're just a C grade student. That student's going to grow up to think that he is a C grade student, and then he'll behave in such a way as to prove that belief in his everyday life. And so the main crux, the main thrust of this book is that you've got to picture, you've got to imagine, you can even draw, take out a piece of A3 paper and draw who you want to be in 10 years and then list the attributes and almost force yourself, make yourself believe that you are already that person. And that this is just one item, but it's the main thesis of the book. There are other aspects of this book. He talks about the success mechanism and how it's important to act. We don't always get things right, but he argues that correct behaviour is a bit like a torpedo. Once you've identified a goal or a target, the self-image, which is the most important issue, you've got to first of all decide, what do I want to achieve? What do you want to achieve in your life? It's the same point that Stephen Covey made in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Imagine what people will say about you at your funeral. What achievements will they list? What things did you accomplish during your lifetime? And in his view, Maxwell Maltz, it's the same thing. It's that you have to imagine. One thing that separates us from computers is our creativity. We're not mere computers. We're not like insects. This grass behind me is full of insects. They don't really have free will. They don't have imagination. They can't picture themselves doing anything other than what they're programmed, what they've been pre-programmed genetically to do. But we're not like this. We have self-consciousness, self-awareness, and we have the ability to change ourselves, our beliefs, how we operate in the world. But one of the first things in order to achieve this is to identify the target. So rather like a torpedo, you're going to meander, you're going to make lots of mistakes. One of the biggest reasons why people don't achieve their goal, why the torpedo doesn't hit the proverbial ship, is because people simply give up. But persistence, perseverance, you've identified the goal, you're going to encounter lots of problems in the world. The negative feedback, which is a natural part of the honing missile, the torpedo finding its way through the complexities and the difficulties, the challenges, the emotional roller coaster, because fear is the biggest obstacle that people face. People are simply scared to do what they actually want to do. They're worried about how they will be perceived. They're worried about not conforming and getting social disapproval for their actions. But he talks about all of this in the book, and I have to say it's an amazing book. As I said right at the start, I'll post what I consider to be probably the best video on this book. It's Maxwell Maltz himself talking about the content of this book with some supplementary comments from the interviewer and the person who made the documentary. But something like 35 million copies of this book sold. Incredibly influential. Do go and check it out yourself. Thank you for watching.